Hello and welcome, hardworking individuals. Namaskar. Well, many of you think that the revolt of 1857 or it was the first war of independence. Many believe that it was not first war of independence, rather it was a Bear mutiny, Sepoy mutiny. Nonetheless, but that was not the first revolt of independence. There were many other rebellions before the 1857 uprising took place. And why were those rebellions there? Like the Sannyasi rebellion, you have the Ahoms revolt, you have the Wahhabi movement, because of the policies of the Britishers. And Britishers' policies were always very much against what was in favor of the Indians at that time, especially against the peasants, against the jamindars. And what exactly did happen? One thing I'll make sure that while you see these pictures, if you want the PDF of this classes, because this is a power packed class where you're going to know about almost all the revolts, almost all the rebellions that happened before 1857, and you're going to get this beautiful pictures also in the PDF. So if you want it for free, you can join the Telegram channel of our official Shikara Academy Telegram channel. And also, if you have any question, you'll see at the end of every slide there is a phone number given. You can ask us any question there for free. And also a very quick info, with that we'll just start the class. If you are preparing for TSPSC Group 1 and Group 2, which the notifications will be out very soon and the exams will begin, so you should not wait for the notification. You can join our live batches of the TSPSC, as well as if you're preparing for the UPSC CSE 26-27, and you should not waste any time, rather call on the numbers given below and book your seat. Now let's get started with our class. So as I was saying you, the people's resistance against the British rule. The word people here, it talks about what? It talks about every section of the society. It's not talking about a proper jamindar only, a proper peasant only, a proper trader only. No, it's talking about the overall society at that time. And in that, it will comprise of the peasants, it will comprise of the artisans, it will comprise of the tribals, it will also comprise of the ruling classes, the military personnels, and you will also see the religious leaders like the Hindus and the Muslims. And just to add a flavor to that, we will also see that the sannyasis, the fakirs are also revolting against whom? Against the Britishers at the time. So the agitation in Banaras in 1810, that's what we are starting with, against a house tax imposed by the colonial government, the Seereth rights in 1840 against the soil duty, the raising in Bareilly in 1816 against police tax and municipal taxes are some examples of urban movements also. So it says what? That the movements were not only in the rural areas, but it were also in the urban areas. Okay, so this is something that you should keep in the mind. Now let's see the causative factors for the people's uprising. So actually, what were the major factors that we have to look into? All the uprising that we'll be seeing, we are going to see almost 10 plus uprising, 10 plus revolts. In all the uprising, you're going to see one of these reasons will be there. So you need not to go separately one by one to them. If you are preparing in a very holistic way, you should get into what were the causes first. So first and foremost, the colonial land revenue settlement, heavy burden of new taxes, eviction of peasants from their lands, and encroachment on tribal lands. So basically, the land taxes that they are bringing, the land laws that they are bringing, that was one of the reason, okay, for the people as uprising. Next, exploitation in rural society coupled with the growth of intermediary revenue. Now they are also taking advantages of the rural society at that time. Okay, so they are increasing the revenue collection. They are in some way money lenders are also benefiting in that. Expansion of revenue administration over tribal lands leading to the loss of tribal peoples. Now this is important from the sense of the tribals. Okay, so the tribals were not living in the rural areas or the urban areas. Tribals were living in the forest, but they will make such laws that even the forest land, the forest trees, that will also be stopped. The tribals would not be allowed to use, so the tribals will revolt automatically, and that the promotion of British manufacturing goods, heavy duties on Indian industry, especially the export duties, but whatever will come from outside, that will not be taxed. Destruction of indigenous industry leading to migration of workers from industry to agriculture, increasing the pressure on the land and agriculture at that time. So what we are seeing, the few of the reasons, we can see the colonial land revenue settlement was one of the very important reason for the uprisings. Then you have the heavy burdens of the new taxes, then the encroachment of the tribal lands that we have seen, then the eviction of the peasants from their lands. This is also very important. Along with that, promotion of British manufactured goods. Obviously, you can understand the heavy duties on the Indian industries are also making a way for it. Along with that, we see the eviction of peasants from their lands is also making it hard. So all of this devastated the Indian handloom and the handicraft industries. And once again, I'll say that if you want the PDF of these classes for free, you can join the Shikara Academy Telegram channel. And also, if you have any question for any of the educator, you can call on the numbers given below. It's totally free for you. Now, the widespread resistance against the British colonial rule in the 18th and the early 19th century was not a single sudden event. Okay, it was a cumulative outcome of systematic exploitation. Grievances were there already. Okay, it was not just something that suddenly it has come up. No, it has not come up suddenly. Rather, what it was something which was building up, boiling up, and like the whistle of the cooker. Okay, it has blown up. Now, let's see how it starts. It starts with the permanent settlement. So what was done in the permanent settlement? If you remember, we have already discussed. By the way, this is a complete modern India, modern history series that we are doing from the Spectrum books perspective, and also added information. So we have already completed many classes. There is a complete playlist available. So you should subscribe if you have not yet subscribed to get through all the classes, and you, after seeing this class, you should also watch those classes to get a better clarity or better prepare for the modern history. Now, the permanent settlement that was in 1793 in Bengal, it was introduced by Lord Cornwallis. Now, in permanent settlement, what happened? Jamindars became the proprietors. Now, when Jamindars became the proprietors, peasants were reduced to tenants at will. Okay, and high fixed revenue demand was done. What happened in permanent settlement? That they fixed a revenue. Now, when they were fixing the revenue, they thought that we are going to fix it for the 5-10 years, coming years. So we should fix it at a high level so that we are not at loss after 5 years or 6 years. So they have done a very high calculation and they put a very high revenue demand. Now, who is actually going to suffer through that? The Jamindars will not suffer. The peasants are going to suffer. So what happened? The widespread peasant indebtedness and evictions will happen, because at that time, forget about at that time. Today also, when we talk about the agriculture, we know the agriculture is rain-fed in India. In India, the agriculture totally depends on the rain. If not 100%, at least still 50-60% is dependent on rain. So at that time, what do you think? It must have been 80 to 90% dependent on the rain. And what would have happened if there is no rain? In the case of the natural calamities, they are not growing the crops, but they have to give the high taxes. Now, this created absentee landlords and loss of customary land rights. Now, the Jamindars will also why be there? They know that there is this permanent amount that I have to give. So, he is also not present there. So, all those things will create what? It will create problems for the peasants at that time. Next is the Rayatwari system. Basically, who are the rayats? Rayats are the peasants. Okay. Don't get confused. We try to make the topics very easy for you. Okay, get to know the definition, get to know the know about. So who are the rights? The rights are the peasants. So that's why a peasant system. What was the Rayatwari system? It's in Madras and Bombay Presidency, introduced by Thomas Munro. Basically, direct tax settlement with the peasant is done. Direct settlement with the riots is done. Jamindar is not there in between. So the pressure to pay cash taxes regardless of harvest, and again exploited through corrupt officials and the unserious landers. Next is the Mahalwari system. Again, what is Mahal? Mahal is basically the villages. Here also what is having in the northwestern province of Punjab, parts of central India, these Mahals or the village communities, there the revenue is fixed. Okay, and still burden communities with heavy taxation and colonial interference in traditional village autonomy at that time. Next, when we see, it is the growth intermediary revenue collectors. Now, the intermediary collectors, who are these revenue intermediary collectors? Let's see about them. The rise of jamindars, talukdars, revenue farmers, and money lenders who exploited peasants. So these are increasing day by day. Now the debt cycle, peasants mortgage lands, they lost the land, and they will become what? They will become the bonded laborers, because before they had the land, now because they could not pay the money, so their land is also gone. Consolidated a rural hierarchy tilted towards collaborators of British revenue interest at that time. Okay, so this is something that you should see. Next is the expansion of revenue administration into the tribal area. So the earlier tribes enjoyed communal ownership of land, shifting cultivation, and the commercial autonomy. But the colonial rule, if you talk about, it declared tribal land as government wastelands for revenue purposes. Okay. And next, if you see, they introduced money lenders, traders, and landlords into the tribal economies, and the Forest Acts restricted their access to forest produce, grazing, and shifting cultivation at that time. So this is one very important fact that you should understand. Next is what? Next is the economic exploitation and the destruction of the indigenous industry. What was this? India was transformed into a supplier of raw materials, cotton, indigo, jute, opium, and consumer of the British goods. So the Indian goods are being supplied to the Britishers, and Britishers end product are being brought to India. Traditional handicrafts like the textile, metalworks, shipbuilding were declining. Famine worsened due to the neglect of subsistence crops in favor of cash crops like the indigo and opium. So when you will grow indigo and opium, so whenever you will have this droughts, who is going to help you? You are not going to eat the indigo. Okay, the result, widespread unemployment and pauperization of the artisans at that time. Also, we will see the decline of the patronage for the priestly and scholarly classes. So Indian kings and local chiefs, that the traditional patrons lost autonomy and their revenue to the British. Religious institutions, temples, and madrasas will lose the land grants, that is the inams and the jagirs, and priestly, scholarly, artistic classes felt alienated at that time. Forms of people uprising, what were the forms? So there were basically four different forms that we are going to see. What are these four different forms? First is the civil uprising, that is the revolts of generally by the disposed rulers, jamindars, chiefs, or the communities at that time. Okay. Next is the peasant movement. This will be carried out by the peasants, centered on agrarian operations, revenue settlements, and indebtedness. Example will be Indigo Revolt, Pabna Revolt. Next is the tribal revolt. Tribal revolt again will be done by the tribals, resistance against intrusion into the forest, alienation of land, and missionary intervention. For example, Santhal, Kol, Khasi, Bhil revolts. And the last one is the military revolt. Poor salary to the military personnel's caste description, and the religious interference like the cartridge greased with cow pig fat, and racial mistreatment, which you will see, which will also result in the uprising of the 1857 at that time, that we will see. Okay, so these are few of the important reasons that we have seen. Now, civil uprising before 1857, the word civil, it encompasses everything which is not related to the defense and military, and there will be this former jamindars, landlords, polygars, palayalam, and the nayakas at that time. Palayalam is basically the South Indian holders of territory. Okay, and the nayakas mainly the rulers at that time. Okay, now the major cause of civil uprising, what were the major causes? We have already discussed so many of them. Let's see a few more. Several jamindars and polygars who had lost control over their land and its revenue due to the colonial rule had personal scores to settle with the new rulers. The ego of traditional jamindars and polygars was hurt due to being sidelined in the rank by government. The ruin of Indian handicraft industries due to the colonial policies impoverished the millions of artisans, and the priestly classes instigated hatred and rebellion against the alien rule at that time. So these are few of the reasons which were important for the uprising at that time. Now, important civil uprising, if you see, Sannyasi revolt, economic exploitation, and harsh taxation by the British worsened the Bengal famine of 1770, which displaced peasants and ascetics. Now, because of this, what happened? Raids on British factories and revenue offices, for example, in Dhaka, Rampur, Gwalior, Rajshahi, and Dinajpur, and key battles include a Sannyasi victory near Saran in 1767 and Fakir raids on Bogra and Rajshahi at that time. Leaders, who were the leaders? The Hindu sannyasis like Bhavani Pathak and Devi Chaudhrani. Muslim faqirs like the Majnu Sa, Musa Sa and Chirag Ali Sa were the leaders. And what was the outcome? Rebellion faded after British crackdown of 1800. Okay, so this was the sannyasi revolt. Let's see the next one. Next is the revolt in Mednapur and Dalbhum. Again, you will see the very same reasons. Introduction of the new land revenue system by the British. Major events will be Jamindar sided with the riots against British revenue. Leaders will be Damodar Singh and Jagannath Dhal. And outcome was local resistance to colonial revenue policies. Next is the revolt of Muammariyas. So religious oppression and humiliation of low caste Muammariyas by Ahom officials. Now, major event: capture of Ahom capital, imprisonment of Ahom king Lakshmi Singha, puppet monarchy, and leaders will be Raghav Moran. And we will also see that his wife's Govinda Gobura was also there. Outcome was long drawn struggle, weakening the Ahom dynasty at that time. So this is something which was related with the revolt. Next is the civil uprising in the Gorakhpur, Basti and the Bahraich at that time. So the causes were the harsh taxation by the British officers or the ijardars to finance wars against the Marathas and Mysore. Major events were the Major Alexander Hannes Misrule led Jamindars and farmers to revolt king or surrounding British subordinates at that time. Leaders: local Jamindar guerrilla forces, Major Hanne British side. Outcome was the uprising suppressed but Hanne dismissed. Revolt of Raja of Vijayanagaram. So what was this? British cutting down Jamindari rights, increasing revenue demands. Battle of Padmanabham, where British force defeat Raja Vijayaraj II. Raja was killed, and then Vijayanagaram state became tributary under the British control. So most of the time, again and again, you are seeing the harsh taxation or the British laws or the British cutting down some Jamindari rights, or those were the important reason for this all the revolts. Next, we'll see the civil rebellion in Awadh that happened in 1799. Cause was the British interference in the succession, high taxation, subsidiary alliance pressure. Major events was Wazir Ali Khan's uprising, including killing both British citizens and attacking officials. Leaders were Wazir Ali Khan, disposed Nawab, and rebellion suppressed after massacre in Banaras region. Uprising, when you talk about the Ganjam and Gumsur, refusal to pay revenue arrears, oppression of Jamindars and tribal cons. Major events were multiple uprising led by Jamindar Shikara and later his son Dhananjay Bhan against British revenue policies. And the outcome, if you see, British government's authority reduced Jamindar forfeit after leader arrest in 1837. Okay. This is the civil rebellion in Awadh. Next, let's see the uprising in Palamu and Polygus revolt. So agrarian landlord crisis, feudal system operation, Bhukan Singh and Chero's chief rebellion, British military suppression led by Colonel Jones at that time, and rebellion subdued after leader's death in 1802. That was the uprising in Palamu. And the Polygar revolt, British undermining traditional polygal authority. It consisted of two major conflicts, first and second Polygar war. In the first, that started in 1799, we see Veera Pandya Katta Bowman spearheaded the initial resistance against British tax demand. The second war was more organized, involving multiple polygal leaders and joined later by the Marudu brothers. We will see Veera Pandya Kattabomman and the Marudu brothers, and despite strong resistance, the British cursed the revolt by 1805. Okay, and that ended the polygar autonomous power at that time. Next is the Kutch Rebellion. Okay, the Kutch Rebellion of 1816 to 32, power struggle between the local chieftains and the Maharaja Bharmal II, British interference, highland taxes, assessment and administrative charges. The British deposed Maharaja Bharmal II in 1819, replacing him with his infant son, installing a British resident there. The rebellion was marked by the intermittent fighting by discontent chiefs. Leaders like Maharaja Bharmal II and local chieftains were involved here. British retained control but had to pursue conciliatory policies to maintain peace. Next is the rising at Bareilly, resentment against newly imposed police tax, fueled by the religious tension and British administration insensitivity. The uprising was triggered by police injuring a woman during the tax collection escalating to violent clashes involving armed Muslims from neighboring areas at that time. And who was the leader? The leader was Mufti Muhammad Awaz. We are talking about the rising at Bareilly. British suppression with heavy military force, over 300 rebels killed but demonstrated widespread discontent. Next is the upsurge in the Hathras in the rising revenue demands and inability of local Talukdar Diaram to pay arrears. Major events, what was here? Hathras fort, a stronghold resembling a second Bharatpur, was attacked by the British. Dayaram resisted bravely for 15 plus days, but before agreeing to a submission. Who were the leaders here? Dayaram and Bhagwant Singh, and British military suppressed the uprising. Okay. Next is the Paika rebellion, political disempowerment after British took over the Khurda and removed King Mundaka Deva II. Cancellation of traditional land rights for Paika warriors. Major event led by Bakshi Jagabandhu. The Paikas attacked the British establishments in April 1817, including burning government offices and treasury. Who was the leader? Bakshi Jagabandhu, and suppressed by May 1817 by British military. So once again, you are seeing that the causes are also the same and the outcome is also the same. And the outcome, all of them are being suppressed by the Britishers, because Britishers were having high military technologies, they were having good weapons also, they were more organized in comparison to these uprisings, and they must have been in number also good. Next is the Paika rebellion, we have already seen. So let's see the Waghera rising, economic exploitation, heavy taxation and disruption of traditional governments by the British and Gaikwad of Baroda. Led by the Waghera tribe in Gujarat, the uprising the resisted British rule and was eventually put down by military force. Waghera tribe, no specific individual leaders were here. Again, it will be suppressed. Ahom revolt, British violation of promise to evacuate Assam after First Burma War, attempt to annex Ahom territories. Ahom Prince Gomdhar Konwar, crowned king in 1828, mobilized armed resistance and attempted to capture British strongholds. Gomdhar Konwar, Dhananjay, Borghain and Jairam were some of the important leaders here, and rebellion was again suppressed, like all the other rebellions have been suppressed till now. Now, next is the Surat salt agitation, British monopoly and heavy tax on salt production. Local traders and residents of Surat revolted against salt tax. So it was not Gandhi ji who revolted against the salt tax first, but before him in 1840 it was already done, led mainly by the local traders and common people. Government temporarily withdrew additional salt levies, early example of tax resistance. And next is the Wahhabi movement, where the religious reform movement with anti-British sentiment. So please understand, it was one of the movement which was religious reform movement. There was anti-British sentiment, but it was aimed to restore Islamic purity and reject the foreign rule. Active mainly in northern India, not detailed in the sources of the leaders. Movement weakened by British suppression but influenced later Islamic reform and the resistance at that time. And last but not the least, we are going to talk about the Kuka movement. Sikh religious revival and revolt against the British colonial rule in Punjab emphasized religious reforms and political dissent. Baba Ram Singh and other Sikh leaders movement faced British repression but contributed to Sikh social political identity at that time. So with that, we have come to the conclusion, and the conclusion all is that the causes of this uprising were multifaceted, stemming primarily from exploiting land revenue system, disrespect and disempowerment of traditional rulers and chiefs, and there were sometimes religious and social interference as well. But at the end of this class, I can say you that if you go through the PDF of this classes, it will really be very helpful for your exams preparation. So if you want it for free, you can join our Telegram channel. And if you have any question regarding the preparation, you can call on the numbers given below. Let's see the question. The Sannyasi revolt took place mainly in which region? It was Bengal and Bihar. You can pause the video here and see in detail the explanation given here. Also, you can take this PDF for free if you join our Telegram channel, and you can also call on these numbers if you are not getting the PDFs or if you have any question. The Paika rebellion of 1870 was primarily an anti-British uprising. Is true. The rebellion was led by landed militia, that is the Paikas in Odisha, who were upset over British land revenue policies. So both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. Muammaria rebellion, that is something Polygar Revolt, Kuka movement. Kuka is very easy to remember. You should remember Kuka with Punjab. Okay, Ahom is something which is related to Assam. This is something that you should remember. So, and Kutch rebellion, again, it is something which is going to be related with Gujarat. So, 5 should be A, 4 should be B. Where is 5 is A, 4 is B, and 3 should be E. 3 is E. I think A should be the correct answer here. Let's see. Yes, A is the correct answer. Maurya Rebellion, Assam. Polygus Revolt, Tamil Nadu. Kuka is in Punjab. Ahom was in Assam. Which of the following uprising was primarily caused due to oppressive salt taxes? We have already seen in Surat salt agitation that Gandhi was not the first one, rather it was already done in Gujarat. Identify the uprising which was not primarily anti-British. So we have also seen this Wahhabi movement was also aimed for the Islamic reforms. Okay, so with that we have come to the end of the class, but it can be the beginning for you if you are preparing for TSPSC, UPSC or APPSC. You can join the one-on-one live mentorship by Deepika ma'am, who is having 20 plus years of experience and who has guided 100 plus aspirants into the administrative services. So nothing goes away if you call on these numbers. You can also ask any question if you have, and we'll meet again in another class. If you subscribe and keep working hard, you will surely be successful. Thank you so much. Namaskaram.